The Tunisian sun blazed mercilessly in May 1943 as Wilhelm Krauss, a 24-year-old tank gunner from the Afrika Korps, crouched in the wreckage of his panzer. Dust coated his face, his uniform torn from shrapnel. Nazi propaganda had fueled his resolve. The Allies were weak, their nations crumbling under the weight of chaos and division. Surrender meant shame, perhaps death. Yet, as Allied tanks rumbled closer, Wilhelm's unit, starved, low on ammunition, raised white flags. Handcuffed and marched to waiting ships, Wilhelm braced for the end, clutching a small notebook where he scribbled his fears. Better to die fighting, he wrote, than to face their savagery. Weeks later, the creaking troop transport docked in New York Harbor on a humid July morning. Below deck, Wilhelm stood shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of POWs, the air thick with sweat and dread. Older veterans like Hans Müller, a grizzled sergeant from the Eastern Front, whispered tales of American cruelty, "They'll starve us, or worse." But when the hatches opened, sunlight flooded in, revealing a sight that silenced even Hans. The Statue of Liberty stood like a sentinel, her torch catching the dawn's rays. Ferries crisscrossed the Hudson, their horns a cheerful counterpoint to the prisoners' tension. Beyond, Manhattan's skyline glittered, skyscrapers ablaze with electric light, unshrouded by blackout curtains. In Hamburg, Wilhelm's childhood home, every window was painted black, every street lamp extinguished to hide from British bombers. Here, America flaunted its radiance, as if war were a minor inconvenience. The POWs disembarked under guard, but no rifles prodded them. American soldiers, young, relaxed, some whistling, formed orderly lines. They chatted about baseball scores and weekend plans, ignoring the Germans' tattered uniforms. Wilhelm caught fragments of English, "Yankees beat the Sox last night." Hans muttered, "They're mocking us with their ease." But Wilhelm wasn't sure. Was this mockery, or simply life continuing? As they marched through the city, crowds gathered, not with hostility, but curiosity. Children pointed, giggling at the strange uniforms. Women carried shopping bags brimming with groceries. Shop windows overflowed with oranges, chocolates, and cigarettes, luxuries Wilhelm's mother, Anna, queued hours for in Stuttgart, often returning with only a few ounces of margarine. Propaganda had painted America as a land of riots and poverty, yet the streets were smooth, cars streamed by, and the people looked robust, their faces unmarred by hunger's pallor. That night, in a temporary holding barracks near the docks, Wilhelm opened his notebook under a flickering bulb, another shock, as electricity in Germany was rationed tightly. He wrote, "We were promised cages and cruelty. Instead, we see a city that shines through war. If this is defeat, what is triumph?" The next day, the POWs boarded trains heading west. No cramped, airless cattle cars, these were passenger coaches with clean wooden benches and open windows letting in the summer breeze. Guards passed out water bottles, their voices free of menace. The train rattled through New Jersey's green hills and Pennsylvania's rolling fields, its steel wheels singing a steady rhythm. Wilhelm pressed his forehead to the glass, awestruck by the sheer volume of trains sharing the tracks. Freight cars loaded with coal, steel, and machinery stretched for miles in both directions. American records, he'd later learn, documented 43,000 locomotives in 1943, hauling goods across a continent, dwarfing Germany's war-weakened network of fewer than 20,000. In North Africa, Rommel's forces had begged for fuel. Here, it flowed endlessly. Fritz Bauer, a former engineer among the prisoners, leaned over. "One train carries more than our entire supply line in Tunisia," he said, eyes wide. Wilhelm nodded, a sinking feeling growing. How do you fight a nation that never stops moving? At a small station in Ohio, crowds watched the POWs disembark for a transfer. No stones were thrown, no curses shouted. Children waved, and a woman offered a basket of apples to the guards, who shared them with the prisoners. Wilhelm bit into one, the crisp sweetness a stark contrast to the moldy bread of his last months in Africa. Shop windows displayed not just fruit, but radios, clothes, and toys, items long vanished from German shelves. Otto Vogel, a former schoolteacher from Bremen, sat beside Wilhelm, his face drawn. "They told us America was collapsing," he said. "But look, cars, food, faces full of life. My daughters survive on cabbage water." That evening, as the train rolled on, Wilhelm wrote, "The rails hum with abundance. If their trains carry this much, what do their armies wield?" The train stopped at a dusty station in Iowa's flatlands. Marched to a POW camp, the prisoners tensed at the sight of barbed wire and guard towers. "Here it comes," Hans growled, "the real punishment." But inside, the camp defied their fears. Wooden barracks stood in neat rows, windows open to the breeze. A canteen glowed warmly, and beyond the fence, endless fields stretched, punctuated by red barns, brimming silos, and windmills turning lazily in the wind. Assigned to bunks with clean blankets, the men collapsed, exhaustion mingling with disbelief. No shouts, no beatings, just the faint strains of swing music from the guards' quarters, Glenn Miller's, In the Mood, drifting through the night. In German camps, silence was broken only by orders or screams. Wilhelm lay awake, scribbling, "We braced for chains. They gave us beds and music. What world have we stumbled into?" At dawn, the mess hall revealed another shock. Trays overflowed with roast beef, mashed potatoes, fresh apples, warm bread, and pitchers of cold milk. The prisoners hesitated, fearing a cruel trick. But the guards waved them forward. Quartermaster records allocated 3,200 calories per prisoner daily, more than German civilians, who scraped by on less than 1,500. Wilhelm's first bite of bread, soft and fragrant, brought memories of his mother's kitchen before the war. Otto, fork trembling, whispered, "This meal could feed my family for days." His eyes glistened, thinking of his daughters, pale and hungry in Bremen. After breakfast, guards distributed packs of Lucky Strike cigarettes, the red bullseye logo gleaming. In North Africa, soldiers fought over cigarette stubs. Here, they were handed out freely. By 1944, America produced 280 billion cigarettes annually, enough for every soldier, civilian, and prisoner. Wilhelm lit one, the smoke curling upward as he wrote, "Tobacco for enemies? If they give us this, what do their heroes receive?" Work details began within days. One assignment took Wilhelm's group to Michigan's Willow Run plant, a colossal factory producing B-24 bombers. The air thrummed with the roar of machinery, cranes lifting fuselages, rivets hammering, engines growling to life. Women in overalls, hair tied back, worked the lines with practiced ease, laughing and chatting over the din. A bomber rolled off the line every 63 minutes. Germany's factories, crippled by bombings, couldn't match a month's output. Otto stared at a half-assembled plane suspended overhead. "One factory," he murmured, "holds more strength than all we have left." Fritz, the engineer, calculated silently. American electricity output in 1944 reached 140 billion kilowatt-hours, surpassing Germany and occupied Europe combined. Back at camp, debates erupted. Hans insisted, "It's a show to break us." But Wilhelm countered, "No show builds planes this fast. Their power is real." That night, Wilhelm wrote, "We were taught victory comes through sacrifice. They prove it through steel and speed." Autumn brought harvest duties. Assigned to John Whitaker's 1,200-acre farm, larger than Wilhelm's entire village in Württemberg, the POWs wielded tools under minimal supervision. Massive John Deere tractors plowed rows in hours, work that took German farmers days with horses. Iowa's 1944 corn yield exceeded 500 million bushels, feeding not just America but Allied armies abroad. Wilhelm, who had grown up on a small vineyard, was stunned. "One farm could feed my whole town," he whispered to Fritz. Whitaker, a weathered farmer with kind eyes, treated them like workers, not enemies. At midday, his wife, Margaret, brought pails of cold milk and cornbread. The prisoners drank deeply, the creaminess of forgotten luxury. In Germany, milk was a rare treat, diluted for children. Here, cows grazed in herds, their udders full. Otto, once proud of Germany's agrarian traditions, muttered, "Our sacred soil. These fields bury it. One man outworks our villages." Evenings in camp, dirt still on their boots, the men reflected. Fritz wrote in his diary, "Their tractors harvest in hours what our families toil seasons for. Where is our superiority now?" In late October, John Whitaker made an unprecedented request, to host 5 POWs for supper at his farmhouse. Camp regulations allowed limited civilian contact, and after cautious approval, Wilhelm, Otto, Fritz, and 2 others, Karl, a quiet medic, and Paul, a young infantryman, walked to the farm under guard. The air carried the scent of wood smoke and baking apples. Inside, a long table groaned with roast chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, green beans, cornbread, and apple pie cooling on the sill. Margaret served with quiet efficiency, her smile disarming. The Whitaker children, 2 boys, James and Tommy, and a daughter, Emily, peeked from the stairs, curious but unafraid. Wilhelm hesitated before his first bite, the chicken tender and savory, a far cry from the rancid rations of Tunisia. Conversation began haltingly, bridged by broken English and gestures. Whitaker asked about their homes. Wilhelm showed a faded photo of his fiancée, Elsa. Margaret leaned in, admiring it with genuine warmth. "She's lovely," she said softly. Otto, tasting the pie's cinnamon sweetness, blinked back tears. "How can we hate those who share their bread?" he whispered to Wilhelm. Emily, the youngest, offered Paul a crayon drawing of a cow, giggling when he thanked her in halting English. For a moment, the war dissolved, no Reich, no allies, just a table where enemies became human. As they left, Whitaker shook each man's hand, his grip firm. "War's a damn mess," he said, "but you're men, not monsters." Wilhelm wrote that night, "We entered fearing death, left tasting life. Their kindness cuts deeper than any blade." As snow fell over Iowa, the prisoners' doubts grew. Camp newspapers reported American feats, a Liberty ship launched every 4 days, 17 million tons of food shipped to Allies, U-boats sinking faster than Germany could build them. Red Cross bulletins confirmed the numbers, each statistic a blow to Nazi dogma. Otto, at roll call, muttered, "If they feed the world and still give us pie, who's truly starving?" Christmas 1944 brought extra rations, chocolate, oranges, even coffee. German and English carols mingled under Iowa's starry sky. Wilhelm recalled Stuttgart's air raid sirens drowning out hymns, his sister pale from hunger. Here, behind barbed wire, warmth and light endured. Karl, the medic, sang softly in German, his voice breaking. "My brother's on the Eastern Front," he confided later. "Does he know what we've seen?" In the barracks, small groups debated in whispers. Some, like Hans, clung to denial, "It's a trick to break us." But others, like Fritz, questioned aloud. Return to what? A Reich that lied? The guards, overhearing, said nothing. They didn't need to, the evidence was in every glass of milk, every glowing bulb. When the war ended in 1945, Wilhelm and his comrades returned to a shattered Germany, carrying diaries that held a new truth. It wasn't bullets or starvation that broke their faith, but the relentless hum of American industry, the glow of neon-lit towns, and the quiet power of a shared meal. Otto, reunited with his family, read his entries to his daughters, describing fields that fed millions and a farmer who saw him as a man, not an enemy. Wilhelm's final entry, written on the ship home, read, "Strength is not in terror or conquest, but in lighting cities through war, feeding the hungry, and extending a hand where a fist was expected. We saw it, and it changed us forever. In the silence of their rebuilt lives, the echo of America's abundance lingered, undeniable, transformative.